Hi, I'm Kevin's wife Mara, and we're going to show you the making of a tape loom. Now, I've been making small tape looms like this for a couple of years now. It's called a tape loom because you make tape, which is the 18th century term for a narrow woven band. We'd call it ribbon today. These were used for apron strings, curtain ties, ties on bags, anything you would use a narrow strip for, that sort of thing. I also have been making things like this. This is a lazy Kate, but I haven't made anything like this. This loom was made by David Hoffman, and I have his plans, thanks to his family. Thank you very much. And it's going to be an opportunity for me to learn a few new skills. This is a treadle tape loom, so called because it's got two treadles or foot pedals for moving the heddles. The heddles hold the threads. There are holes and slots in each of them, and the threads that go through a hole in one heddle go into a slot in the other, and vice versa. So when you press each pedal, it moves the heddles up and down and allows you to weave.
So now that you have an idea what this is and how it works to make tapes, the challenge now is to make two of these out of that stack of poplar sitting there on the table saw and the outfeed table. That is kiln dried, rough sawn lumber that we're going to break apart and mill for this job. Comes from our local hardware supplier, and we're going to make, well, Mara's going to make two of these.
So I have an order for one, and I figured as long as we have the tools set up, it's just as easy to make a second one. And then I'll have one on hand for the next time I get an order. This loom was made by a gentleman named David Hoffman. Unfortunately, he's now deceased, but he let me have his plans, which his family graciously copied for me. We've made a few alterations over time, like changing the fastening for this pawl, but you know, it'll be largely faithful to the original at Landis Valley Farm Museum.
So now the next step is turning that into this, and Mara's going to go through what we're going to use this stack of wood for initially on this thing.
This is going to be turned into the back beam. Sorry for the screech. I need to put that over on the lathe and turn it down. These are going to be the uprights on the heddle frame. These are the tables. This is the table of the loom. And then I've got miscellaneous pieces lying around for the other turned bits and for the ratchets and pawls. We've got more wood out of frame here for these uprights for the things holding this beam and this. It would be called a beam on a big loom. I'm not sure there's a name for it on a small loom, so we're just going to use the same terminology. Cloth beam, roller, and then we've got more 3/4 wood over out of frame that we're going to plane down for the actual heddles. The heddle is this. A lot of tape looms just have a single heddle. This is a double heddle, and we'll need to plane this down a bit and then drill the slots and holes in it.
All the slots and holes we'll do in the CNC. We have the drawing for that, which is very convenient. I can draw this up in AutoCAD and then export it as a DXF file, import it into VCarve, which is the driving software for our CNC machine, and then we can cut these out on the CNC machine. It seems like a lot of extra work, but you should see trying to make one of these things by hand.
Which we have done.
Which we have done. Doing it on the CNC machine. And once you've got the files in VCarve, the tap files, then you've got them forever. You can cut as many of these things out as you need in the future if more of these sell. Hopefully, we'll sell more of them.
Yep. In a previous video, I said that we'd modified this, and then I went and looked at Mr. Hoffman's plans, and apparently his original plans had blocks like this, but then on the one that he made for me, he put some kind of metal cleat there. So we're actually reverting to his plans unintentionally. Kevin modified this to make it work better, and it turns out that's what he had originally anyway. So.
Well, originally it was like it was similar to a bobby pin hinge or close, the
right, a metal
staple hinge. It's very similar to a staple hinge.
That this rotated on, and it kept pulling out of the wood.
And this one, we're just putting a block there and a screw just in tight enough to keep this loose. It holds much better. And I did the same thing over here for the back pawl. So with that said, let's get started milling out some of this lumber for the parts. So Mara cut these profiles into the upright pieces. Now we have to cut 2 dados. You see in this picture here where those dados are, and the heddles run up and down inside those dados. So she's going to cut those now. We set up the stacked dado head 1/2 inch wide, 3/8 high with a 1/2 inch to the fence. So all she has to do is make one cut, flip it around, and do the other cut. So do one cut, actually flip it around this way, and do the other cut. So she's going to do those dados now. That gives us our raw stock to cut those uprights out of. Without further ado, would you please cut some dados? Okay, ears up.
I've been at the lathe and turned a few things. So what I've done is the little pulley here,
Zooming in.
the back beam, which will have the ratchet and pawl there, the front beam, which on a big loom would be the cloth beam, the roller, and that's all the turning I need to do. So next what I'm going to be doing is I've cut these to length. That includes the tenon length, and I will be drilling and chamfering these parts. Drilling and chamfering these parts, and then duplicating this. This is the only part of the loom that is maple rather than poplar because it needs to be extra strong. So that's my work for the day.
I dug out my tenoning jig that I got off of Craigslist more than 10 years ago, maybe 15 or 20 years ago. I haven't used it in about 10 years, but since there's so many tenons involved, mortise and tenon joints on these things, we got the tenon jig out. I got it squared away. I cleaned it, lubricated it, put a waste piece on it. So now Mara's going to do some tenons for you. This piece right here. This is Delta. They cost hundreds of dollars now. I think I paid 15 to 20 bucks off of Craigslist.
So now we are cutting the uprights for the heddles.
You'll see this picture, I've got an arrow pointed to what the uprights look like.
Right here. I need to cut the tenons on those. So I'll be
All the
working on
mortises
that.
have been cut,
So I have to cut each tenon to fit the mortises.
and it's finicky because it's asymmetric.
Yes.
But Mara's going to take care of that. So if you would be so kind, cut some tenons. I'll step out of the way. Mara has done the cheeks, and she did a stunning job. You'll note this time that she used the dado head and the fence and the miter gauge as opposed to the tenoning jig, just showing another way to do it. She's going to do the shoulders now, and those fit really nice in those mortises.
Yep. And I had to individually fit each one since, of course, they're hand cut.
Yeah, hand cut mortise, machine cut tenons, and we'll do a little fine fitting with a
Thingamajig.
thingamajiggy, what's it call it? Yeah, a plane. You know, a plane thing. We'll use the shoulder plane to get these fine fit when we put it together. So Mara's going to do the shoulders now, and then after that, I think we might move on to the heddles, but we'll see what's next in the process of building the tape looms.
All right, so I've cut the cheeks of the tenon, and now I'm cutting the shoulders of the tenon. I've not moved the fence. It's the same setup so that it will all be exactly the same depth. I'm sneaking up on each dimension since each of the mortises is hand cut. So I've got them all in order and all numbered, and like this, and then flip it, and then go check the size, and then sneak up on it.
So I recorded Mara doing some sanding and cutting on the bandsaw. She will describe to you what those parts are and what she was doing.
So the things I was cutting out were the pawls for the ratchets on the tape loom, 2 long ones for the back, and 2 short ones for the front. Since we are in fact making 2 looms, I need 1 of each. And then 2 sets of foot pedals for the heddles. You press on these to make the heddles move. And we found some nice spalted poplar looking through the pile at Lowe's. So that'll be fun when it stains up.
Now, the legs, as you can see from this picture, are splayed out. And it's splayed at 10 degrees. The way I got that was my handy dandy, what's the degree measurement tool. So they're splayed at 10 degrees, but it's not a compound splay. It's only one direction. They don't come forward or back. So to drill those holes on the table can be a little bit problematic to get them nice and accurate. Mara and I like accurate stuff.
I've tried drilling holes by eye. No, need a jig.
Need a jig. So I made a jig. I watched a video from LaBelle's workshop, link in the description, and of how he set up a simple jig for doing angled holes. And what I did was I cut this wedge at 10 degrees and cleaned it up. Then I cut another piece of wood out of the 2x4 like this. This hole got drilled perpendicular to the surface. Now, I glued it then to the 10-degree wedge and then drilled all the way through the wedge. Now, when this sits flat on the table, I have a 10-degree hole. And this will give us a very accurate hole or jig to drill those holes into the table. And we're going to drill them with our big-ass drill. We have a big-ass drill. So the next step is build more parts and make more parts and assemble more parts.
I milled the lumber down for the legs and then cut them to width and length. And now we are going to taper the legs. And then after they're all tapered, I will be turning the top 2 inches down to about an inch so that they can be let into the table.
What I'm using is a tapering jig that I bought from a furniture maker out in the valley, the Shenandoah Valley for those who aren't around here, from Charles Neal. Now Charles is no longer with us, but he was a fantastic period furniture maker, and he came up with this jig. So anyway, I've already set the jig feet to keep this in the right orientation for the table saw. There's the turned end. Now I just set it in here like this, up against the stop and up against the feet. Clamp it in place. Make sure that's flush there. And this line that we have back here is on the cut line. So now we'll have a taper coming up this way. Then we'll do all 4 in one dimension. Then we'll have to reset the jig for the other dimension because, of course, they're all tapered on one side now. So with that said, let me go ahead and get started on this, and then we'll go from there. We'll show you how we set it up for the second ones. Okay, ears up. I've got my ears up and my tunes. Got to have my tunes.
Yeah.
Mara's never used the tapering jig, so I'm giving her heads up on how to use it, and I'll do a few cuts, and then she'll do a few cuts, and then she'll do the rest of the cuts for all the legs. All right, go ahead. Shoulder back. Okay, got it. Do a good break. Okay, slide it. See what we have? Perfect. Okay. That look good to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Grink it down.
Grink being a technical term.
Yeah, grink is a technical term. It means tighten it up. Torque. Grink. So I'm ears up, and I'm going to go ahead and make the first cut, then Mara can make the rest of them. Well, she'll make the rest of them anyway, regardless. Now we're making the tapers on the other side of the legs, which means we had to readjust the jig. I'll make the first cut, Mara will make the rest of the cuts. And there we have it. The legs are now tapered. There's only one taper, so it's tapered on each side like so, but it remains parallel on this side. And then they splay out like that at 10 degrees. And notice I'm tipping at 10 degrees with it. 10 degrees. So Mara will make the rest of the cuts, and then we have the legs roughed out, and she can turn the ends.
Oops. Yep, that's right.
This is the X right here. And there we go, 4 tapered legs for at least one of the tape looms.
Yep.
Now we do the other ones. I think we have 8 very nicely tapered legs.
Yes.
I see, I marked them even for me. Marked around them when they get turned. Alrighty then. So,
All right. So now I need to turn the ends. We're also going to have to like cut the bottoms eventually, but not now.
Yeah, we'll use a table saw as a reference to do the to get them all lined up correctly.
Yep.
And also, we got to start. She has to start chopping holes in the plate as well for things. Mara is now going to start turning the leg end. She's got it chucked up in the leg. Now this is an asymmetric piece of wood, so this is going to be a lot of fun. So Mara, go ahead and do it to it.
Which end do I want to be the front end? And also which end is
How do
the
you want
top?
the grain to go?
That's a good question.
Well,
I think
you want to nip that off, I guess.
I do. So I think I want this to be the back.
So this will be the front. So we'll measure that one up. So the measurement is 21 inches from the back is where the front taper starts and then goes out to here.
If we're doing the grain that way, maybe this should not be the front, this should be the back. So,
Oh, so I see what you're saying.
yeah,
But that
flip it around.
Flip it around.
Yeah.
And still got to put a bow tie on it. I see. So you want the
Yeah, just for pretty.
yeah. So you want the cathedral going this way.
Yes.
Cathedral grain pop-ups. So she measures 21 inches down from the end.
Yep.
And that's where these tapers for the front of it start.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
Big combination squares.
Got it.
Okay. And then so 3 and 8 from the edge, so 3 inches and 8 edges
Yes.
from that from 0.
So 3 inches here and
8
8
inches
inches there.
And we get the long.
Now, is this going to be a problem with the mortise that comes through for this?
It may be. We'll have to put the bow tie here, and we may bow tie it there as well.
Okay. I mean, it's such a big piece of wood. It's
Yeah.
probably going to be
Get
okay.
this angle in here.
Okay.
So you see Mara here is using yet another technique for mortising. That's our hollow chisel mortiser. It's a jet piece. She's using a habit bit. These are the mortises for the roller at the top of the heddle supports. And she's doing one side because it's a wide mortise. She's doing one side and she's going to flip it around and do the other side.